My name is Janelle Giannini. I'm 28 years old, and I'm going to tell this story exactly the way it unfolded, because even now it still feels unreal that this was my life. I'm a pharmacist. I've been doing it for about 5 years. It's stable, demanding, and it pays well enough that I've always taken pride in standing on my own. I make around $125,000 a year. I pay my bills on time, and I don't live extravagantly. But I like knowing that if something breaks, I can fix it without panic. I lived alone in a 2-bedroom apartment in a good part of town. Clean, quiet, predictable. And parked in the garage downstairs was my Tesla Model 3, a car I'd saved up for over 2 years to buy. No shortcuts, no help, just discipline. I'm telling you this because later, someone I trusted treated all of it like it was disposable. My fiancé, now ex, was Evan, 26 years old, an elementary school teacher, 4th grade. The kind of guy who talked about his students like they were family. Everyone loved him instantly. My friends said he was sweet. My coworkers said I was lucky. At first, I thought so too. Evan was charming, funny, affectionate. He knew how to make you feel chosen. When we first started dating, he talked about values, about wanting a simple life, about how teaching wasn't about the money, it was about making a difference. I believed him. The first red flag wasn't dramatic. It didn't come with yelling or cruelty. It came with a restaurant check. Around 3 months in, we went out to dinner. Nothing fancy. When the bill came, I instinctively reached for it. Evan didn't. He didn't even pretend to. He smiled, leaned back, and said, "Thanks, babe." No offer, no, I'll get the next one, nothing. The second date after that, same thing. Then the third. I told myself maybe he was old-fashioned. Maybe he thought I liked paying. Maybe it was temporary. I didn't want to be the person who nickel and dimed love. About a year later, Evan moved in with me. He'd been living with 2 roommates across town, paying about $900 a month for a cramped place that always smelled like burnt coffee. My apartment was nicer, more space, better neighborhood, quieter. I tried to be fair. I said we'd split rent 50-50. That would have been $100 each. He stared at me like I'd just insulted him. "Janelle, I'm a teacher," he said. "I can't afford that." Okay, fair enough. So I adjusted. I told him to just pay what he'd been paying before, $900. Same cost, much better living situation. You'd think that would settle it. It didn't. Every month there was a new excuse. Student loans, car payment, unexpected expense. Something always came up. And somehow I always ended up covering the rest. Most months I paid around 70% of the rent. Utilities, same story. Groceries, I'd come home with $300 worth of food from Costco, and Evan would Venmo me $50, then complain about how broke he was while lighting a $60 candle he just couldn't resist. Vacations, me. Concert tickets, me. Weekend trips, me. I didn't expect him to match my income. I wasn't asking for equality down to the dollar. I just wanted effort. But Evan acted like my wallet was an extension of our relationship, something he had access to, but no responsibility for. And the worst part? He complained constantly about money. Teaching pays nothing. I'm so stressed about finances. Meanwhile, he spent like someone else was handling the consequences. 6 months ago, I proposed. Yes, I proposed to him. I'm not traditional, and I loved him. I thought we were building something real. I wanted him to feel chosen the way he made me feel chosen. I took him to a beautiful steakhouse overlooking the water. After dessert, I got down on one knee. The ring cost me $8,000, 3 months of saving every extra dollar. He cried. He said yes. He hugged me so tightly I thought my ribs might crack. By the time we got to the parking lot, the ring was already on Instagram. By the time we got home, his Facebook status said engaged. Wedding planning started immediately, and that's when the mask really slipped. Evan wanted everything. An expensive venue, a high-end photographer, a videographer, thousands of dollars in flowers because details matter, a live band because a DJ isn't classy. Every time I brought up budget, he got defensive. "It's my special day, Janelle." Then he'd correct himself. "Our special day." But it never felt like ours. If I pushed back, he'd go cold, withdrawn, quiet in that way that makes you feel like you've disappointed him just by being realistic. "I guess we can just do a cheap courthouse wedding," he'd say. And suddenly I was apologizing for not wanting to drain my savings for one day. About 2 months after the engagement, something changed. Not one big thing, just everything. Evan started guarding his phone, always angled away, always smiling at messages he didn't explain. When I asked who he was texting, he'd say, "Just the guys," and change the subject. He started going out more. Guys' brunch, happy hours that ended late. He came home smelling like bar food and excuses. Shopping trips that resulted in nothing coming home, which was strange because Evan always bought things. When I asked about his day, his answers became vague. It was fine. Nothing interesting. The intimacy dropped off too. From a few times a week to maybe once every couple of weeks. And even then, it felt like he was somewhere else. I tried to talk to him. I told him I felt disconnected, that something felt off. He looked me straight in the eye and said I was being paranoid. "It's wedding stress," he said softly. "Once it's over, things will go back to normal." He even teared up, told me he loved me, asked me to trust him. I wanted to, but my gut didn't let it go. His friends started acting strange around me. Inside jokes, conversations that stopped when I walked in. Looks exchanged like they knew something I didn't. Then one Tuesday night, Evan casually dropped a bomb. "So Dylan and some of the guys are planning a trip to Miami," he said. "For Dylan's 30th. Would it be okay if I went?" He said it like it was no big deal. 4 days, Thursday to Sunday. Over $1,000 total. On the same salary that couldn't handle rent. When I hesitated, his tone changed. "I never do anything for myself," he snapped. "I'm stressed. I work with kids all day. I need a break." And the way he said, "Is that okay with you?" made it clear that saying no would make me the villain. So I did what I always did. I caved. The next day, I gave him $1,500 and told him not to worry about money. He kissed me and said I was the best. 2 weeks later, he left early Thursday morning, kissed me goodbye, told me he'd miss me. 10 minutes after the door closed, I noticed his phone on the kitchen counter. I picked it up to call him, and something in my gut screamed. I unlocked it. At the top of his messages was a thread with a name I barely recognized. Sienna, his ex-girlfriend. The latest message read, "Can't wait for today. Been counting down the days." Evan's reply, sent 5 minutes before he walked out the door. "Me too. See you at the airport." My stomach dropped straight through the floor. I stood there in my kitchen, Evan's phone heavy in my hand, like it had suddenly gained weight the moment I unlocked it. I remember thinking, maybe I'm misreading this. Maybe there's an explanation. That thought lasted about 3 seconds. I opened the message thread. Weeks of texts, then months. The timestamps went all the way back to around the time I'd proposed, right around the time I'd slid an $8,000 ring onto his finger and thought we were starting a life together. "Miss you. Thinking about you today. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if things were different?" And Evan, my fiancé, wasn't shutting it down, not even close. Heart emojis, late night replies, inside jokes I'd never heard. Messages sent while I was asleep next to him. Messages sent while he was sitting on my couch, eating groceries I'd paid for, telling me about his day like he didn't have another life running parallel to ours. I scrolled faster, my pulse pounding in my ears. Then I found the planning. Not a group chat, not the guys. Just Evan and Sienna. He asked if she'd want to catch up. She said she didn't know. Things were complicated. He told her they didn't have to be, that they could take a little trip like old times. She hesitated once. Then a week later, she asked, "What about Miami?" No mention of Dylan, no birthday, no group. Just the two of them picking dates, talking flights, choosing hotels. My chest tightened when I saw the screenshot he'd sent her. A beachfront resort room, 1 king bed. Her response? "Looks perfect. Now we should get separate rooms. Not, let's make sure it's platonic. Just looks perfect, with a heart." I felt something inside me snap. Not dramatically, not loudly. It was quieter than that, like a rope finally fraying after being pulled too tight for too long. I switched apps and opened Instagram, found Dylan's profile. There it was, a story posted that morning. Dylan and 3 other guys at his place, beers on the counter, suitcases by the door. Caption, Miami bound. Different flight, different hotel. The guy's trip was real. Evan just wasn't on it. My hands were shaking now as I opened his email. It was still logged in. I didn't even have to search. There it was, a round-trip flight confirmation. Destination, Cancun. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. So not only had he lied about who he was going with, he'd lied about where he was going. I clicked the hotel confirmation next. It had been sent to Sienna's email, then forwarded to Evan. Presidential suite, $450 a night, 4 nights. But he'd told me the Airbnb was $350 total for his share. He hadn't just lied. He'd budgeted his lie. He'd taken my $1,500, shaved off the truth, and upgraded his romantic getaway with his ex-girlfriend using my money. I sat down on the couch and just stared. I don't know how long I stayed there. 40 minutes? An hour? Time felt weird, stretched thin and heavy. My brain kept replaying little moments from the past few months like a highlight reel I never wanted to see again. His smile when I handed him the money, the way he kissed my cheek and said I was the best. The nights he came home late and blamed work stress. It wasn't a mistake. It was a system. And once I saw that clearly, the shock gave way to something colder. Clarity. I took screenshots of everything. Every message, every receipt, every confirmation. I emailed them to myself, backed them up to the cloud, took photos with my own phone just in case. I wasn't going to confront him impulsively. I wasn't going to scream or cry over FaceTime. I was done being reactive. I packed his things that same day. Every shirt, every pair of shoes, every hoodie he'd borrowed and never given back. I folded everything neatly, 7 boxes and 3 suitcases, and lined them up by the front door. Then I called a locksmith. Same-day service cost me $220. Worth every cent. By 5 p.m., the locks were changed. I called my landlord and explained that Evan would no longer be living there and not to accept any calls or requests from him. He asked if I was okay. I told him I would be. I texted Evan once from my own phone. You forgot your phone. I saw the messages with Sienna. I saw the Cancun flight. I saw everything. Don't come back. Your stuff is packed. You're not welcome here anymore. Then I blocked his number. His flight was supposed to land Sunday afternoon. He didn't wait that long. Sunday at 3:12 p.m., my Ring camera sent me a notification. Someone was at my door. I opened the live feed. There he was, tan, tired, hair pulled back, airport clothes, suitcase rolling behind him. He tried the key once. It didn't work. He frowned, tried again, jiggled it like the lock was the problem. Then he knocked. I opened the door, but stayed planted in the doorway. Hey, he said, forcing a laugh. My key isn't working. Did you change the locks? Yeah. He blinked. Why would you do that? How was Cancun? I asked. The color drained from his face. What? Cancun, I repeated calmly. With Sienna. How was it? I was in Miami. Stop! I held up his phone. You left this. I saw the messages. All of them. The flight. The hotel. Everything. He stared at me, his brain visibly scrambling for an angle. Then his face hardened. You went through my phone? He snapped. That's such a violation of privacy. Answer the question, Evan. His expression shifted, shock to anger in a heartbeat. Oh my God, you're so insecure, he scoffed. Sienna is like a sister to me. We're just friends. Friends don't lie about cities, I said. Friends don't hide months of texts. Friends don't let their fiancé pay for secret vacations. I knew you'd react like this, he shot back. This is why I didn't tell you. You're jealous and controlling. I laughed once, short, sharp. I gave you $1,500, I said. How exactly is that controlling? You're twisting this, he said. Nothing happened. I don't care if something happened or not, I replied. You lied. You stole. You disrespected me. We're done. He froze. You can't just end this. We're engaged. Not anymore. I slipped the ring off his finger and held it out. Take your things and leave. This is my home too, he snapped. Your name isn't on the lease. You never paid rent consistently. You're a guest who's no longer welcome. His eyes filled with tears. Janelle, please, he said. I made a mistake. We can fix this. No, I said quietly. Then the tears stopped. His voice turned cold. You're such an insecure loser, he said. Sienna is twice the woman you'll ever be. Then go be with her, I replied. I'm sure she'll love paying your bills. That's when he started hauling boxes to his car, 6 trips in total. Each time he passed me, he threw another insult. I was pathetic. I'd die alone. I'd never do better than him. On the last trip, he turned back. I need a few days, he said, to figure out where I'm staying. You have family 20 minutes away, I said. Call them. I can't, he muttered. They'll ask questions. Tell them the truth. He glared at me like he wanted to burn the image of me into his memory. Goodbye, Evan. He peeled out of the parking lot. I closed the door, locked it, put the chain on. The apartment felt lighter, quieter, like I'd finally set something down I didn't realize I'd been carrying. My Tesla sat untouched in the garage below. At the time, I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. Every ignored red flag, every time I'd talked myself out of trusting my gut. By morning, I felt hollow, like my body had run a marathon without me. Still, I forced myself into a routine. Shower, coffee, pretend I was a functional adult. At 10:07 a.m., my phone buzzed. Tesla app notification, Sentry mode activated. I frowned. The car was parked in the garage in its assigned spot. There was no reason for movement. I opened the app. The live camera feed loaded, and there he was. Evan, walking through the garage like he knew exactly where he was going. My breath caught. I watched him glance around, left, right, checking if anyone else was there. The garage was empty, quiet, safe for what he was about to do. He stopped beside my Tesla. For a second, he just stood there, staring at it. Then he reached into his pocket. Keys. Not car keys. House keys. The old ones. The ones that didn't work anymore. I whispered no to an empty apartment. He pressed the key against the driver's side door and dragged it down the paint in one long, deliberate motion. The sound wasn't audible through the camera, but I could imagine it. That awful metallic scrape. The violation of it. He stepped back, looked at the line he'd made, then did it again. And again. Slow, careful, methodical. He wasn't angry in the wild, explosive way people imagine. This wasn't a loss of control. This was control. He moved to the hood next, dragging the key straight across it. Then the trunk. Each time he paused, inspected his work like an artist adjusting a canvas. At one point he smiled. Actually smiled. That smile did something to me. It flipped a switch from shock to pure, shaking rage. My hands trembled as I started screen recording on my phone, capturing every second. 4 minutes. That's how long it took him to destroy a $50,000 car I'd worked years to afford. When he was done, he nodded to himself, turned, and walked away like he'd just checked something off a to-do list. I sat there frozen, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Then I moved. I grabbed my keys, went down to the garage, and stood there staring at the damage. Deep gouges, not surface scratches. You could see bare metal in places. This wasn't buffing out. I took photos from every angle, close-ups, wide shots, details. Then I called my insurance company. I need to file a vandalism claim, I said, my voice tight. The adjuster was sympathetic. Based on the damage, she estimated $6,000 to $8,000 in repairs. My deductible was $1,000, and I'd be without my car for at least a week. They needed photos and a police report, so I called the non-emergency line. I need to report vandalism, I told the dispatcher. I have clear video footage of the person doing it. An officer arrived within the hour. Officer Patterson looked like someone who'd seen everything and wasn't impressed easily. I showed him the footage on my laptop. He watched it once, then again. That's about as clear as it gets, he said. You know this person? My ex-fiancé, I replied. We broke up 4 days ago. He nodded slowly. This is malicious destruction of property. Then he asked the question. Do you want to press charges? Yes, I said immediately. No hesitation, no second guessing. He took my statement, copied the footage, photographed the car himself, and gave me a case number. A detective would follow up. As he was leaving, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, I answered. Janelle, what the hell? Evan's voice hissed. The police just showed up at my parents' house. You vandalized my car, I said. What did you think would happen? That was an accident, he said quickly. An accident? I laughed. I have 4 minutes of footage of you keying my car from 3 angles. Silence. Janelle, please, he said. Drop the charges. We can talk. No. I hung up and blocked the number. 4 days later, Evan was charged. Malicious destruction of property. His parents hired him a lawyer who mostly handled traffic tickets and DUIs. I hired a civil attorney. His name was Mark, mid-40s, sharp, no nonsense. I laid everything out in our first meeting. I want everything, I said. The repair cost, my deductible, the rental car, my increased insurance premiums, and the diminished value of my car. Mark smiled. Good, this is straightforward. The criminal case establishes liability. We ran the numbers. Repairs, $7,800, estimated. Deductible, $1,000. Rental car, $400. Insurance increase over 3 years, around $1,000. Diminished value, $800. About $10,900 in direct damages, Mark said, plus punitive damages. How much? Conservatively, another $5,000. Let's do it, I said. We filed the civil suit a week later. That night, Evan showed up at my building, buzzing the intercom over and over. Janelle, please, he cried. Open the door. This is insane. You're suing me. You vandalized my property, I said through the intercom. Yes, I'm suing you. I don't have that kind of money. You should have thought about that before you keyed my car. He sobbed, loud, ugly crying that echoed through the lobby. I turned off the intercom. His lawyer left voicemails over the next week, asking to discuss a settlement. I forwarded them to Mark. Mark called him back once. Full amount plus attorney fees, he said. or we'll see you in court." The calls stopped. The criminal case resolved first. Evan took a plea deal: misdemeanor vandalism, 150 hours of community service, 2 years probation, and full restitution. He could have gone to trial. He would have lost. The restitution hearing was surreal. Evan sat there with his lawyer and his mother, who shot me, looks like I was the villain, like her son hadn't lied, stolen, and destroyed my property. The judge shut down the argument that insurance should reduce what Evan owed. "Your client deliberately destroyed Ms. Giannini's property," the judge said. "Insurance does not absolve responsibility." He ordered Evan to pay $9,200 in restitution, repairs, deductible, rental car, at $230 a month for 40 months. But I wasn't done. The civil case went to trial 3 months later, and that's when things got interesting. By the time the civil trial rolled around, 3 months had passed. 3 months of quiet. No late-night buzzing at my door, no blocked numbers slipping through, no dramatic texts from friends just checking in. Evan had gone radio silent, probably on his lawyer's advice, probably because every move he made just dug the hole deeper. The Tesla was still in the shop during most of that time. I drove a rental that smelled like stale air freshener and disappointment, and every time I slid into the driver's seat, I was reminded of how carefully I'd built my life and how violently he'd tried to tear it down. Court day came faster than I expected. I walked in with Mark, my attorney, carrying a neatly organized folder that held months of proof: receipts, estimates, insurance statements, screenshots, videos. Evan was already there. He looked smaller, not physically, just diminished, like someone whose confidence had finally run out. He sat beside his lawyer, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the table. His mother sat behind him, arms crossed tight, shooting me looks that said, "How dare you?" I didn't look away. The judge entered, everyone stood, then sat. Evan's lawyer opened first. He argued that the criminal restitution Evan was already paying should satisfy the damages, that my insurance had covered most of the repair costs, that additional compensation would be punitive rather than compensatory. Mark didn't even flinch. "Your Honor," he said calmly, "criminal restitution covers direct repair costs. My client is entitled to compensation for the diminished value of her vehicle, increased insurance premiums, and punitive damages, given the deliberate and malicious nature of the act." Then he asked to play the video. The courtroom went quiet. The footage filled the screen. Evan in the garage, the glance around, the key, the first scratch. I watched the judge's face more than the screen. When the video reached the part where Evan stepped back and smiled, really smiled, the judge's expression changed. Not dramatically, not theatrically, but something hardened. The video ended. The judge leaned forward slightly. "Ms. Giannini," he said, "is there anything you'd like to add?" I stood. "Yes," I said. My voice didn't shake. That car wasn't just transportation. It represented years of work and sacrifice. What he did wasn't an accident. It was a choice, one he made 4 minutes at a time. Evan didn't look up. The judge nodded once. Then he spoke. "Mr. Reynolds," he said to Evan, "this was not a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a calculated act of destruction carried out deliberately and with apparent satisfaction." He paused. "That smile," he continued, "demonstrates intent." Evan's lawyer started to object. The judge cut him off. "Final judgment," he said. He listed the numbers clearly. $800 for diminished vehicle value. $972 for increased insurance premiums over 3 years. $5,000 in punitive damages. $6,772 in additional damages. Combined with the criminal restitution, Evan now owed me $15,972. The payment plan was restructured. $303 a month for 48 months. 4 years. 4 years of consequences. The gavel came down. Just like that, it was over. I exhaled for the first time in months. Outside the courthouse, Evan's mother rushed toward me. "Please," she said, her voice strained. "He can't afford this. He's barely making rent." I looked at her for a moment. "Your son stole $1,500 from me to take his ex-girlfriend on a secret vacation," I said. "Then he destroyed my car when I held him accountable." She opened her mouth to argue. "If he couldn't afford the consequences," I added calmly, "he shouldn't have committed the crime." I walked away. The Tesla was picked up from the shop the next day. It looked brand new. Perfect paint, no visible scars. But I knew. And more importantly, Evan knew. Every month for the next 4 years, he would know. It's been 8 months since everything came crashing down. The first payment from Evan hit my account right on schedule.
303 you're heading.
I stared at the number longer than I probably should have, not because I felt triumphant, but because it felt final, concrete, a line drawn under a chapter that had been bleeding into the next. Then the second payment came, then the third. He hasn't missed one yet. Probation has a way of keeping people punctual. Every month, I transfer that money into a separate savings account. I named it Never Again. It's my reminder, not of him, but of what I deserve. The Tesla is back in my garage, gleaming like nothing ever happened. If you didn't know, you'd never guess it had been vandalized, but I do, and that memory keeps me grounded. I returned the engagement ring and got $6,400 back. Not the full $8,000 I paid, but enough. That went straight into the same account. For a while, I thought winning would feel like joy. It doesn't. It feels like closure. Like setting down a weight you didn't realize you were carrying until your shoulders finally relaxed. I've started dating again. Slowly, carefully, no rushing, no ignoring red flags because someone makes me laugh or says the right things. I ask questions now. I watch actions. I listen to my gut. The first time a man joked about me being the one with money, I paid my half of the check and didn't call him again. Growth is quiet like that. Sometimes people ask if I regret pressing charges, if I feel bad that Evan will be paying for what he did for years. I don't. Consequences aren't revenge. They're boundaries with teeth. He didn't just lie. He didn't just cheat. He didn't just steal. He tried to punish me for refusing to be used. And that's the part I'll never forget. Every month when that $303 lands in my account, it reminds me that self-respect isn't loud or dramatic. It's consistent, just like accountability.